Welcome to Driven, the Unscripted Success podcast, with your hosts, Mike Menino and Nariman Hamden, bringing you insights and stories on achieving personal, professional, and financial success.
Hi, everybody. It's Michael Menino, and welcome to Driven Unscripted Success podcast. Today on the podcast, we're interviewing professionals who share their experience with you, the audience, and how they got to where they're at today. And zooming from the beautiful island of Seattle is Gary Chupik. He's a mental performance coach, and we're going to have a little session here to explore what he does for a living. Gary, how you doing? Introduce yourself. Tell everybody who you're at, who you are, and where you're at, and how you got there.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Michael. My name is Gary Chupik from Seattle, Washington, and I'm a mental performance coach and consultant, and I work with professional teams and athletes, and now more and more in businesses, which is shocking to me, but that's really exciting. I unlock potential in people and high performers, and so you don't have to be sick to want to get better. So my job is to unlock the hidden reservoirs of performance in people, because everybody has a next level. So that's what I do professionally, and I'm just thrilled to be on the show today.
Thank you for coming, and thanks for your input that you're going to put onto the show. So you work with a lot of sports people at Current, correct?
Correct.
So what do you do when you get teams, you get individuals? What do you mainly focus on?
Yeah, it varies. It depends on the situation. Sometimes people have a perceived need, or perhaps they're in crisis and you want to address that. Sometimes I'll get a call from a coach and say, "Hey, can you work with this guy? And he's really struggling in a certain area." And so you go into like crisis management mode, and that's important and that's needed. And yet, most of the time, I like to work with high performers who are already good at what they do, but they're always looking for a competitive edge. In other words, Pete Carroll from the Seattle Seahawks once told me, he goes, "Gary, the best always want to get better," and they're always wanting coaching. There's never a time where they don't want. No athlete that's at the highest level ever says, "No, I think I'm good. I just got to work hard." Nobody does that. In fact, Russell Wilson would talk to his mental performance coach, Trevor Moawad, 365 days a year. And so if you want to keep that kind of sharp, yeah, that mental performance coach was constantly in his ear every single day, and they had a really profound relationship. So Trevor was my mentor as well. And he had a big impact in my life. So yeah, it's not about just being sick. This is about like, how do I find the hidden reservoirs of potential inside of me? Because I know I have more levels.
Awesome. So I was telling you a little bit earlier, I am a professional brick breaker. 2 weeks ago, I just got back from the U.S. Open, and I compete at the highest level of martial arts at 60 years old, believe it or not.
Impressive.
It's fun. It's fun. God's gifted me with the ability to break things. It's a crazy gift. It is a crazy gift.
I love it.
It is a crazy gift. It is a crazy gift. I've done some public speaking on stage and stuff, and it is a crazy gift, but it's a gift. It really is. I was good at it, and then I learned to take it to the next level, and then I went to the world stage on the U.S. Open. Been on TV a few times, and it's just fun. Everybody asks me why I do it, and I'm like, it's just fun. It's just fun.
Well, it's fun. It's fun, but it's also a part of you. Like, for example, I remember a certain stage of my life where I was thinking about what should I do next. And I remember, and as a person of faith, I just remember thinking, okay, God, what do you want me to do with my life? Like, this is a reset. This was like, in some ways, it was kind of like a midlife crisis. It was like, do I go buy a Camaro, or do I kind of like hit the hard reset button in my life and think about what I want to do and what God wants me to do? So I remember staring out my back window and just like a kid just sort of tugging on their parents' shirt. Like, God, what do you want me to do with my life? Like, what do you want me to do? What do you want me to do? What do you want me to do? And then it dawned on me as I was reading the scriptures, where there was this story about blind Bartimaeus, and Jesus comes up to him. And I'm thinking blind Bartimaeus was probably thinking like, what do you want me to do for you? And yet Jesus was the guy who turned it around and said, "Well, Bartimaeus, what do you want me to do for you?" I'm like, well, wait a minute. Like, what if God is waiting for me to say, "God, here's what I want"? And I just didn't have any room as an ordained minister for 28 years, almost 30 years. I just thought that wasn't like I wasn't even allowed to think about the question, like, what do I want? And I realized that at one point, Jesus called me servant, but now he calls me friend. And what do friends do? They have conversations about it. Where do you want to go? I don't know. What do you want to do? Well, I don't know. Where do you want to go? I don't know. What do you want to and so it just began this really dynamic partnership about who I am and my identity. So while you found something that you were good at, it's actually kind of part of your identity. And it was fun. And I think the world needs more spiritual people who are having fun, because there's so many people out there that are kind of drudging along and feeling like they have to live a life of perpetual sacrifice, and it's always woe is me, and I got to just sort of handle and cope everything with everything. And it's not the case. Like, are there seasons of your life that you can go through? Of course there are, right? Like, that happens, and there's a lot of dynamics, different dynamics that are involved in that. But in general, should you be doing who God created you to be? Like, should you be that person? Should you surrender to it? I think the answer is yes, because I think beautiful things happen that way. And every time you use a tool that is used for its not intended purpose, you ruin the tool, right? Like, if you ever used a tool like a screwdriver, like a hammer,
the wrong way.
Yeah, you used it the wrong way. But when you use it the right way, it does exactly what it's meant to do. And I think in some ways, finding out who you are, what you love, what you find fun, and surrender to it, beautiful things can happen. So I don't know, just an interesting take on it, but that certainly I can identify with that idea of like, man, what do I find fun?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I try to explain it to everybody. Why do you like doing this? And then I go, I have absolutely no idea. But I get around 2 weeks ago, I was with the best breakers in the world. People that come all over the world. There's an Australian team, there's a Brazilian team, and we get together and just see who's the best that day. It is the coolest thing you've ever seen in your life. And
That's
here's
amazing.
something. It is fun. I'd love to talk to you after the show and show you what we do.
Well, how much, Michael, is mental?
This is your realm. So I'm gonna tell you my grandmaster's conversation with me. I'm a fifth dan, my grandmaster's an eighth dan, my grandmaster's a 10th dan. He's the one. We talk stories of martial arts of the people that fought in the Korean Wars and brought the Korean art to the United States. My grandmaster is that dude. He fought in Korea, brought the art over, gave Chuck Norris a couple belts, and we're having a conversation. And I was a second or third degree martial artist at the time, telling a 10th dan that he goes, we were having the conversation, what percent of sparring is mental? And he said 100%. And I said, and I'm taking a different point. And I go, no, you gotta train your muscles. You gotta practice the technique. You gotta practice the quick twitch. Your muscles have to, you gotta work out. You gotta do that. And he's just sitting there letting me burn out. Just sitting there letting me burn out. Just like, you gotta do this. You gotta hit weights. He's like you, just laughing at me.
Yeah.
And then he just let me burn out. And then he goes, well, what makes you go to the gym? Oh, you're mine. And you know that better than anybody for doing what you do. It's 100% mental. And I tried to debate it, and he just let me burn out and said, shut up, sit down, little man. It's 100% mental. Everything is 100%. It's all mindset.
Yeah, that's really fast. That's super fascinating, because that there's a baseline of physical performance that has to be there. There's the baseline. But you take a look at someone like Ichiro, right? Seattle Mariners. The guy's like 5'8", 150 pounds, and he's an all-star, right? A worldwide all-star. Not only did he succeed in Japan, he also succeeded here in America. I'm like, how? And the guy's got a rocket for an arm, right? But how much of that is like baseball and hitting a ball is mental? Like, does he have all the physical
100%.
attributes? Well, not really. If you really think about it, he doesn't really have all the physical attributes. However, he has a mind that is just so amazingly strong and resilient that you just shake your head and kind of go, wow, like I'd love to just sort of be a fly on a wall inside of his head.
So how do you coach people to get better? Let's say, uh, let's do a little quick one on me. So I'm 60 years old. I'm still doing it because I can do it.
Mhm.
And I hate to say this. Everybody's like, when you going to quit? Everybody asks me, when you going to quit? When you going to quit? And I'm still getting first places.
Hmm.
So as soon as I'm fighting my body. Listen, I have had a lot of opponents in my life. Father time is the hardest one.
Mhm.
And when you going to quit? When you going to quit? And I said, when I start not bringing home the first place trophies.
Hmm.
That's a good gauge, I
Well,
guess.
might be one of the metrics. Mhm.
Okay. So what would you do to help someone like me, older, knowing full well he's at the end of his game? And what would you coach me? What would you try and do for something like? I'm sure you'd have to dig a little bit deeper, and we definitely don't have time. But what would you consider? What would you consider? What would be the advice? What would be the coaching?
Well, one of the things that intrigues me about you is what is the game? And is the game just breaking stuff, or is there a bigger game? And how would you know whether you are on the downside of that hill of that particular game? So I would really challenge you to think about what the game is. And and in my mind, there are four different pillars of performance. And number one is there's someone maybe on the left hand side, there would be crisis. Like, is this person in crisis? The second pillar, and to get to the second pillar, you have to cross a bridge. And there's certain aspects of that bridge that you have to cross to get to the coping pillar. But once you start learning how to cope with the challenges that you have, you go over another bridge that has a certain steps that you need to take to get to that third pillar. And that third pillar is thriving. And so now you can get to the thriving pillar, but there's a fourth pillar, and I call that the transcendence pillar, where you are, especially in the leadership world, we call it convergence. So all of the best things about Michael are in that fourth pillar. And it's where you get to share what you've learned, share your experiences, where all those things converge into who you are right now. And I don't know, it kind of feels like at the beginning of a game in some ways, where you're inviting a community to be a part of what you're doing, and you're living out of the overflow of those convergence of talent, skills, and abilities. So I wonder if the what the game is, and I really wonder if you're on the downside of that.
I can only say what the game is. That is a tough question. I'm going to have to get back to you. We're going to have to have another conversation to find out what the game is. The game. That's a great question. The game is. I'm competing at a certain level. I can't find any higher level than this, or I'd go to that.
Mm-hmm.
And trying to stay young, I guess.
Mm.
Trying to stay relevant. Trying to stay, competitive. Trying to stay strong. Trying to stay powerful. Because Father Time is trying to get me to go down this way, and I'm trying to get to go this way. So it's a kind of a lateral move for me at this point. And to fight, I guess to fight the good fight until I can't.
Well, you mentioned four or five different things. You talked about being strong and resilient. You
Mm-hmm.
talked about overcoming yourself in certain aspects of yourself. Stephen Pressfield has a lot of does a lot of conversations about the inner battle of competitors and warriors, which I think is wonderful. But it makes me wonder for you. It's like I wonder what other reservoirs you can tap into to stay relevant and stay important. And I wonder if that same competitiveness can overflow into the different domains of your life. So I've identified at least nine different domains. There's probably a few more, but those are the nine major ones that I see. And it's like, well, how do I leverage the convergence of who I am and take that competitive nature that you have and sort of that pushing yourself? I wonder if that could overflow into different areas of your life. And I have a sense that a lot of people that are in your stage of life might say, well, I need to start winding stuff down. When in reality, I just think your best days are ahead of you.
That's a crazy concept. You just gave me a crazy concept. That is that to think that my best days are ahead of me.
Hmm.
It's possible, and with opening the mind to the possibility, then I got to explore the possibilities of where I want to go. See, I work out as much as I think I can. The 3 months before the event is, eat right, exercise, don't drink, everything that the pros are supposed to do. But could I step it up a level? I'm sure I could. I don't, I'd have to get another physical coach for that, but it's interesting. That's a very interesting concept. That's a very interesting concept.
Yeah, and it's not just about the introduction of a pattern interrupt. It's also finding ways to in a healthy way, stress your muscles that you didn't think that you had. For example, you can go to the gym, as I do 5 days a week. You can go to the gym and do 3 different bicep exercises, and people will say, yeah, 3 sets, or 3 different exercises with, 9 different sets. That's you're stressing that muscle pretty good. However, if you move your wrist in a different way, and you supinate the and put a different sort of stress on the muscle, a different part of the muscle, all of a sudden you found something, even in the physical part of what you're doing, you found something, a part of the muscle that, if activated, actually you find that it was the weak link, and you were just like, I didn't know, like I didn't know this. And so sometimes the experimentation, and not radical, because where you've gotten has led you to a high level of success, but sometimes a slight supination might actually be really helpful for you. And so to keep that drive alive with the pattern interrupt could be really valuable.
That is interesting. That is very interesting. I think flexibility is something I haven't worked on that probably could help me out. You're talking about that little variation. I work on strength because you think strength breaks bricks and wood, but there's a lot to it.
It's a lot to it.
There's a lot to it. And everybody says, what's the one thing? What's the one thing? What's the one thing? And I'd have to say, I think this is from Henry Ford. Whether you say you can or cannot, you're right either way.
Mm-hmm.
So when I go up to those bricks, I have to vision them broken. If I go up to those boards, I got to envision them broken.
Mm-hmm.
So whether you say you can or cannot, you're right either way. So now I got to think about what I want to say I can too.
Yeah, it's really important. I think pop psychology has hijacked the word belief, and it's not a good hijack. So
Well, explain that. I love what you said, but I want the audience to understand that better, and me.
Yeah. Like, for example, if some of my history is with the Seattle Mariners, and the very first thing that Seattle Mariners teach their baseball players, it's like, I mean, like the very first practice of the year, they will sit their players down and they will say, "Do you believe that if you put in the work and you listen to what we're telling you, that you can," and fill in the blank, reach the major leagues? Do you believe that you can be an all-star? Do you believe that you can get that second contract, which is typically the big one in professional sports, second or third one? Do you believe that if you put in the work and you listen to it, do you believe that you can achieve your goals? And if your level of self-belief is a 5, guess what? No matter what training that you put into yourself, and other people pour into you, you will always leak at a 5. You will leak at the level of your self-belief. So if you go
That's
to a
good.
competition and you believe that you can do it, then, like, if your self-belief is a 9 or a 10 that you can break something, right? Then you got a really good shot at doing that. But the problem is that you have to have the confidence to believe. So confidence and belief are different. You have to have the confidence to believe that you can do something. So, for example, I think there's only 2 ways to build confidence. And there's only 2 ways. Again, pop psychology and pop culture have hijacked the definition of these things, but there's really only 2 ways at the highest levels of performance. Number one is preparation. So I call it the 2 Ps. Number one is preparation. If you prepare, you got a shot, right? You can go into something feeling really good about yourself and feeling confident. So preparation, if you're going to go give a speech, but you haven't prepared for it, good luck. You might be good enough to pull it off, but you probably would have done much better had you been prepared. So preparation leads to confidence. And the second thing is what I call prove it. The two P's, preparation and prove it. You have to prove things to yourself. So when you lay your head on your pillow at night, you have seen yourself do something. So you can't talk yourself out of it, because that doubter, that that saboteur, that
I call it the enemy.
Yeah, it is. It definitely is the enemy. But you have to be able to talk back to it.
Mm-hmm.
And oftentimes
Mm-hmm.
I'll say, don't listen to yourself, talk to yourself. Because it's not going to take you to where you want to go. So if you can prove factually that you have done something and you proved it mostly to yourself, then you can say, why do I keep doubting? Like, why do I keep doubting this?
Mm-hmm.
It was kind of the same way with Trevor Moawad, Russell Wilson's mental performance coach, when he was my mentor. He just the fact that he was the peak of the mountain. He was the top of Mount Everest in his industry, and there was nobody better. He was at ESPN all the time. He was on all these different TV shows, commanded, six figures or five figures for talks and speeches where he would go talk and give a speech. And so when he told me, Gary, you're really good at this sports psych stuff. And he hired me on the spot after we had a couple sessions together. When someone like that tells you you're pretty good, you kind of go,
Mm-hmm.
well, maybe I should listen to this guy. Maybe I should. And so it's in the prove it, and you have to convince yourself that you're really good at something. So the preparation and prove it will guide you and lead you beyond what you can do. So you have belief, and which is a little bit ethereal, like it's a little bit sort of like, do you believe? But your belief has to be grounded in your confidence. And there's only two ways to build that confidence. So you really have to work on the reasons to be confident. And so it's the difference between positivity and optimism. Positivity is a feeling that comes and goes, but optimism always requires a reason for you to be optimistic. So are you giving yourself reasons to be optimistic that you can do something? Again, very factual. You don't have to talk yourself into it. You don't need to be motivated. Do you have the facts to prove to yourself that you can do something? So that's the difference between positivity and optimism. And that's the path to belief, is, do you have confidence in yourself, and what leads you to believe that you can do something so that you can be optimistic?
Mm-hmm. And you're talking about that talk. You got to answer it. I have a belief system. It's pretty much the same thing as yours. That there's, I feel that on this plane of existence, there's both sides that can talk to you. And I've heard both voices, right? I've heard you can do this, and then I've heard you can't do this, and not verbally, but more mentally. And someone taught me a long time ago to answer the can'ts. So when I went to my first professional event, I saw the bricks that they were using. They were 2-inch, and I never broke a 2-inch before that day. And I looked at them, and I'm like, and I call it the enemy was talking to me. You're not good enough. That's going to hurt. You're going to make a fool of yourself. And I was on his page. I'm like, yep, you're right. And he was telling me to not show up for my events. All you have to do is just not show up, right? Mm-hmm. Fake an injury, lie, and I'm like, yep. It all sounds like a great idea. And then the short story is that I heard the other voice that, I saw a kid pray, and I said, I can pray too. And the guy running the place goes, yeah, now it's not fair for you. I know God. And something I shouldn't have been in. It was an accident getting there. And I stacked up all these bricks, these 2-inch bricks that I've never broke before. And I hear a voice in the back of my head say, put the 9th one down. Oh, 8's not enough. Put the 9th one down. And I broke, short story is I broke 9 of 9. And wow. I learned to tell the enemy, and all of that, I learned to tell the enemy, thanks for saying that. Because you said this, I know the opposite is true.
Yeah, what I love about what you're saying is, number one, you're not just saying it, but you've lived it, right? So
yeah,
the difference between something and
the second P, performance.
Yeah. And I love the fact that you experienced that and you worked your way through it, because there's a people talk about being, sabotaging yourself or being a flake, or what's the word I'm looking for? Like, you sort of talk your way out of things. You have that doubt.
I did it then. I did it. I was done. I was not going to show up.
Oh
I was just going
yeah.
to go there to learn something. And
Yeah.
then I heard the other voice, go do
Right.
this. And it's never the good voice. God doesn't say, go try this, go maybe, it's always go do this, go do something insane, break nine is 18 inches of cement. Go break 19 inches of cement. Insanity to this guy. It's pure
Yeah.
insanity.
Yeah.
But I listened and I told the enemy, because you said that, I know the opposite is true.
Mm.
And then if you keep saying that for a period of time, I notice he doesn't talk to you as much.
Yeah, that's 100% right. It's the same way with, let's say, lust, as a guy. It's the same thing. If you are tempted by the red dress, if you start praying for the lady in the red dress, it literally changes your entire perspective on lust. And because
Agreed.
all of a sudden, the enemy is just like, every time I try and tempt you, you punch me in the face. I'm like, yeah, that's how it goes,
That's
right?
how it goes.
So back off, right? Like, I'm not.
He just gets. I notice he gets sick of talking to you. It's like I'm not. He's not listening to me, so there's no use in talking, right? That kind of stuff.
The other powerful thing that I really appreciate you saying is you didn't ignore the voice. You
It was terrifying.
exactly, you didn't ignore it. You had a conversation with it. And so here's how I say this. So there's what you want and there's what you really want.
Right.
So there's a part of you that says, I want the red dress, or I don't want to do this. Like you're acknowledging what you want or you don't want. You're acknowledging it. But then you say to yourself, but what do I really want? And what I really want is I want the success that I'm chasing, or I want to achieve something, or I want this, but I want something more. And that's a powerful way to address that inner dialogue.
Agreed wholeheartedly. I learned a lot at 60 years old. I'm going to be 60 in 10 days. I've learned a lot, and I've learned to focus on the positive. I learned to listen to God. But I'm telling you, when I was staring at that brick, I was terrified. I was like, I'm going to look like a fool, and God's going to want me to look like an idiot, and I'm okay with being God's happy little idiot. But I broke 9 of 9, and that day, if I was in the lightweight division, if I was in the heavyweight division, I would have beat the heavyweight that day.
Mm.
So
Wow.
God was trying to tell me it doesn't matter what's stacked up, doesn't matter who's against you, just take me with you and you'll be surprised. And
Yeah.
ever since then, I just got my 12th first place trophy at the U.S. Open, 2 ISK belts, and 1 world record. So he's taking
That's
me on an
amazing.
incredible journey,
Well, I'm learning so much just from you talking to you. And I really appreciate that because you are living proof that a lot of this stuff works. And if you commit to it and you limit the amount of thoughts that you have and the quality of your thoughts. Like one of the things I like to say is this thought producing something good in you? That's how you measure it. Is the production, is what it's producing good in you? Because if it's not producing good in you anymore, maybe it once did, maybe that thought was helpful or useful, but it is no longer useful to you, then you need to dump it and not just, and this is the spiritual part of me, but you don't need to let go of things. You just need to give things to God. So letting
Right.
go and giving to God are two totally different things. So people say, well, can you?
Explain the difference on that, because I would consider both of them is similar. So help me
Yeah.
understand that.
Yeah. So to me, letting go is if I let go of something, I can pick it back up, right? I can
Mm,
remember where I dropped it.
mm,
I can pick it back up. But if I'm going to give something to God and trust Him,
yeah.
say, this is a lot better in your hands than mine, then
Oh, everything's better in his hands.
exactly.
Everything.
So that I can I can not just let go of something, I can trust that someone else understands and knows exactly what's going on.
That's going to be the name of this podcast. I gotta look for names of the podcast. This is going to be giving it up and letting it go.
Yep.
There's a huge difference there.
Yeah.
So I love that we kind of say the same thing differently,
Hmm.
right? We have different views on how this stuff kind of works. Have you had some really big success with some clients that, some breakthroughs, and could you share some of that with you?
Yeah, almost everyone. Um, almost, I shouldn't say almost. I think every one of my clients has a breakthrough. And I think that's the part where maybe I wrestle with myself a little bit because I think, well, I'm kind of arrogant or proud of my work. But on the other hand,
It's okay to be proud of your work.
yeah, I think when you have, like, I want the fruit of my life to grow on other people's trees. And so
That's a good one. That's a
yeah,
good one.
when I see people succeeding, I don't think it's necessarily because of me. I just feel like I contributed to their success. And it's just a drop because their cup is their life, and I'm just contributing my little drop. But it's really fun to see them succeed. And so for me, I just was working with a motocross guy yesterday, and I mean, my life is so joyful because I get to see people succeed. I just am blown away. He goes from there's 42 people in this national race at Loretta Lynn's, in I think it's Tennessee, I think it is, and it's the national once a year national race, and there's the top 42 racers in the country in that age group, and he has a 32, kind of like I think it's a 32 finish and a 28 finish, and but he's going against tough competition, right? Like this is not easy.
It's the best of the best of the
It's the
best.
best of the best of the best. And I'm like, and he's like, hey, I need to get in the top 10 to keep going, like or else I'm eliminated.
Yeah, yeah, you got to qualify. I
I
know exactly
qualify.
what he's talking about. You got to
Yeah,
qualify.
you got to qualify. And so I talked to him a couple days ago, and I'm like, hey, listen, man, what makes you good? What makes you good? And he was talking about the speed and just kind of his process and whatever. And I said, well, what do you notice about yourself when you're at your best? And he goes, well, I probably just stop thinking. And and I was
Flow
like,
state.
yeah, flow state. I was like, well, tell me more about that because you have a very complicated sport. You are,
It's a
and
crazy sport. It
and
is a
it
crazy
is, and
sport.
it's dangerous. One of my other clients just had an accident and he got paralyzed from the chest down about a month ago.
I'm sorry to
So
hear that.
yeah, and he's I'm working with him as well, even in his injured state. The doctor said he'll never walk again. Um,
Bad. Don't listen to them. Don't listen to them.
exactly,
No,
exactly.
listen to the right voice.
Exactly. So I'm working with this guy and I say, listen, you're at your best when you're riding instinctually. I said, your
Yeah,
brain is so amazing. It already picks up everything that it needs to know. So I teach this system called CAPE, CAPE. I've taught it to athletes. I've taught it to the FBI, first responders, people in high pressure situations. And I have found, just like if you put a two by four between two chairs, you want to stress test your ideas. Does it work in different environments? Can it withstand the weight of a different dynamics? And so I said, listen, man, like what I want you to do is CAPE. C stands for control yourself. So it's more of a physiological thing, like take that deep breath, right? Control
hmm,
yourself. A is assess the situation. And that might just be like 2 seconds. Like it doesn't take long for your brain to pick up. Like if you turned around right now, Michael, and I just for 1 second, you could probably tell me 30 things about what you just looked at in your room. That's how amazing your brain is. It's
oh man.
remarkable. So assess the situation. P is make your plan, and
Hmm.
E is execute. And so what are you executing? You're executing three things, all right? Basically, it's made up of three components. Trust your plan, trust your training, and trust your instincts. And the best players trust their instincts because it's what makes them good. So trust your instincts. So I said, what I want you to do is I want you to trust yourself and I want you to just trust your instincts. You've already had the training. Now is not the time to think about your training. I just want you to go play and race instinctually. So he goes out and he ranks number 10 and
Nice.
he makes the next cut. So he ranks 10 from his previous races. And I think he said he could have gotten 7 or 8. He could have even been higher, but he had a couple mishaps. But, I'm like, 10's pretty good. He goes, actually, I thought I was racing at like 14 or 15. I thought I was 14 or 15th, but I didn't realize I was 10th. And I said, well, that's really awesome because I don't want you to worry about what place you're in. I just want you to be race instinctually, right? The race will be whatever it is, but I need you to race instinctually. And so there's an example, one of, hundreds of someone who just needs someone to believe in them, to give them just an encouragement for a moment. And what I've learned to do is coach in 15-second funnels because that 15-second funnel, so you have all this information that you could teach an athlete, but you got 15 seconds, especially in this day and age of just like quick, people are scrolling on Instagram or getting these little quick nuggets of knowledge. So learn to speak in 15-second funnels to high performers so that they can remember what you say.
There you go.
And then once they remember it, they can reuse that tool over and over and over again. So I like to speak in those 15-second funnels and just keep it short, sweet. And I would say that to most athletes or people even in business, but a lot of athletes, listen, you got to trust your instincts. Your instincts are probably right.
Yeah, if they get you to the professional level, then there's something there. You're 100%. You're 100% right, Gary. I can't agree with you wholeheartedly. Mm-hmm. Hey, listen, I've taken up too much of your time. I can't thank you enough for sharing all that information. If anybody wanted to get in touch with you and have some coaching, I might want to talk to you next year before they open. So, how would they get in touch with you? How would they reach you?
Oh, well, thank you for asking. So my business name is Elite Mindset. And you can find me on Instagram. I'm the guy with the blue verified dot, so Elite Mindset. And my website is Elite Mindset Nation because I want to create a nation of servant leaders that are high performers. They're courageous. They're risk taking, and they believe in other people. And so that's kind of what I hope to achieve is create a nation of leaders. So Elite Mindset Nation and Elite Mindset on Instagram.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much for your time today. Went over a little more than I anticipated, but hey, this is one of the greatest podcasts we had in a long time. Thank you for your time, and we'll say goodbye to the audience. And if you guys want to get in touch with Gary, I'd highly suggest it. I mean, this short, brief time that we had together shows you how awesome he is. Thanks, Gary.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for listening to Driven, the Unscripted Success Podcast. Want to share your story? Apply to be a guest at drivensuccesspodcast.com/guest.